Damn it, I can't sleep again tonight. All because of that damn job. I've quit for 6 years now. But every night the moment I drift off, that horror returns, tearing at my mind. Sedatives, sleeping pills, useless. Sometimes I've thought about ending it all just to ease the weight, but I don't have the courage. Perhaps I'll have to live with this haunting for the rest of my life. My name is Ilias Vans, 27 years old. My entire life since the age of 12 has been bound to the scent of fresh wood, the roaring sound of saws, and the walls of the largest lumber mill in the town of Helena, Montana. My father was the most skilled carpenter in the region. A man who could identify wood by a single breath, who could feel the grain with fingertips as sensitive as if he had eyes in his skin. On my very first day stepping into the workshop, he placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Wood is not just a dead material. It once lived, absorbing sunlight, wind, and rain for decades. If you treat it with your heart, it will stand firm for hundreds of years. If you take it lightly, it will crack at the first strong gust of wind." I remembered every word as if it were sacred law. From that day on, every morning before the sun rose above the mountains, I was already at the workshop. I learned to distinguish dozens of types of wood. Oak, hard as stone; pine, sweetly fragrant; cedar, resilient against rot and termites; maple, smooth as silk. I learned how to saw each plank to exactly 3 millimeters thick, not off by even a hair. How to dry them in the shade with steady airflow for weeks to prevent cracking. How to join two different pieces of wood into one seamless block so perfectly that no one could find the joint. Nearly 15 years passed like that. I never took a single day off. Never arrived late, even when the snow piled up to my knees. Never made a mistake, not even the smallest one. Everyone in the workshop called me the Golden Hands, the finest craftsman the mill had ever seen. I thought that would be my whole life. Work hard, build a small house from the wood I crafted myself, marry the woman I loved, teach my son the things my father taught me. A peaceful life, solid and enduring like the planks I created. But fate has a way of tearing apart every plan in the cruelest manner. It was a late autumn afternoon when the sky hung gray like a dirty cloth draped over everything. The cold wind blew hard, carrying fallen yellow leaves across the road, their rustling like whispers of old spirits. The manager called me into his private office, a dim room that smelled of stale tobacco and damp papers. He sat behind a heavy oak desk, his face stiff like wood dried for too long, unable to look me straight in the eye. "Ilias," his voice trembled as if each word was difficult to say. "A new owner has bought the entire mill. They're changing everything. They'll only keep workers with formal qualifications, trained with new technology, craft experience. They say it no longer has value." I stood there as if nailed to the floor. It felt like the ground beneath me was being hollowed out layer by layer. Why? I've worked here for nearly 15 years. I've never ruined a single piece of wood. I do this better than anyone with a degree. He let out a heavy sigh and shook his head. "I know that better than anyone, Ilias, but the decision has been made. It cannot be changed. Here is your remaining pay and a small compensation. You have to leave starting today." I held the thin bundle of money in my hand, feeling how weightless it was, like the entire value of my life had been compressed into those few sheets of paper. I walked out of the office, past the machines I once knew so well, out through the factory gates without daring to look back. Because I knew that if I did, I would see my whole life left behind. The next 3 months were the darkest days anyone could imagine. I went everywhere in town and the surrounding areas, carpentry shops, construction sites, repair stores, even farms looking for laborers. Everywhere gave the same answer. "We only hire people with certificates. Experience alone isn't enough anymore. The economy is bad, we're not hiring." The money ran out quickly. I had to sell everything I valued most. The silver watch my father left me before he died, the one that had ticked faithfully for over 40 years. The thick leather coat he bought me when I came of age. Even the small axe with a cedar handle, the one I once thought I would pass down to my son someday. Each time I sold something, it felt like a small piece of my heart was being torn out and thrown away. Eventually, I could no longer afford rent. I had to move into my father's old 1938 Ford. The engine broke down at any moment, the rear door wouldn't close properly, and the roof had cracks that let rain seep in whenever the air grew damp. Every night I curled up in a thin blanket torn in many places, listening to the cold wind whistle through every gap, feeling it sink into my bones, wondering if this was the end of everything I had worked for all my life. Was I truly worthless just because I didn't have a piece of paper to prove it? One especially cold, drizzling afternoon, when the rain fell like tiny needles piercing the skin, I leaned against the side of the car, trying to light a few damp twigs for a bit of useless warmth. As I reached into a nearby trash bin to grab some scraps of paper for kindling, an old newspaper folded 4 times slipped out. It was soaked, many pages blurred. But in the lower right corner, one bold line remained strangely clear. Hiring caretaker for Blackstone Station. Salary triple the usual rate. No degree, experience, or identification required. Must be physically fit, able to keep absolute secrecy, and not easily frightened. Head west about 40 miles from Phillipsburg. Must arrive before full darkness. My heart suddenly pounded so hard it hurt. Triple pay, no qualifications. Exactly what I needed most right now. I had nothing left to lose, nowhere else to go. I decided to leave immediately. I hastily fixed the engine, bought some bread and a small bottle of water with what little money I had left, and drove out of town just as the sun began to sink behind the mountain peaks. The journey lasted nearly 4 hours, and everything became increasingly strange beyond belief. At first there was still paved road, the occasional small house, a wooden fence, signs of human life. But after passing Phillipsburg, the asphalt vanished entirely, replaced by a dark red dirt road, rough and littered with stones. Soon even that narrowed into a tight path, flanked by towering pine trees that seemed to reach the sky. Their branches intertwined overhead, forming a dense canopy that completely blocked out the sun. Not a single ray of light reached the ground, only a dim gray glow, as if time itself had been stained with sorrow here. The most terrifying thing was the absolute silence. No birdsong, no insects, not even the rustle of leaves, though the wind shook the distant branches. It was as if every living creature had long fled this place, or been swallowed by its silence. The air grew heavier with every mile, like an invisible force pressing against my chest, making each breath harder than the last. The deeper I went, the more it felt like I was traveling backward in time, retreating centuries into the past, to a place untouched by human footsteps. Even the light seemed to slow down, as if it had to pass through some thick, viscous substance before reaching my eyes. When the last trace of daylight vanished behind the tallest trees, I saw it. It stood alone in a small clearing in the forest, with no other building for miles around. A 2-story structure built entirely from massive blocks of black stone, rough, uncarved, untouched by any attempt at refinement. There were no cracks between the stones, as if they had fused into a single mass since the creation of the world. Its surface was covered in a layer of dark, slimy moss, as though it had been absorbing mist and dampness continuously since 1891. The year was carved into a worn wooden plaque hanging above the main door. Blackstone Station, 1891. The building radiated a sense of coldness, antiquity, and secrecy so intense that even my car engine suddenly died, refusing to start again. I stepped out. The ground beneath my feet was soft and soggy, carrying a distinct smell like freshly turned grave soil after decades of burial. There was no wind, yet my hair stirred as if invisible fingers were slowly and coldly brushing through it. I approached the main wooden door. It was as thick as a small wall, pitch black, its surface polished smooth, as if rubbed by countless human hands over the years. When I placed my hand on the corroded iron handle, it was so cold it felt like it would freeze my skin instantly. I pushed the door open, and it let out a long, dry creak that echoed through the space like bones grinding against each other in the dark. The moment I stepped across the threshold, it felt as if I had passed through an invisible veil separating 2 entirely different worlds. The air here was not merely cold, it was thick, like tree resin hardened over centuries, wrapping around my body like a heavy cloak, seeping through my clothes into every pore, making every hair on my body stand on end. This was not the familiar chill of a Montana autumn. It was a cold rising from deep beneath the earth, from pits that had never seen light, from places where secrets lay buried that no one dared speak of. That cold seeped straight into my marrow, making the blood in my veins feel as though it flowed slower with each pulse, as if held back by some unseen force. And with it came a smell I would never forget, one impossible to fully describe. The stench of damp earth sealed away for centuries, the scent of rotting cedar, so decayed it would crumble into black dust at a touch. the cold ash of fires that had burned out long before even my great-grandfather's time. And deepest of all, most horrifying, a sickly sweetness, like human flesh slowly decaying in eternal darkness. That smell clung to my throat, my tongue, even the air I swallowed, as if it would never wash away no matter how long I lived. I stood still, my eyes slowly adjusting to the faint, fragile glow of a single oil lamp hanging high on the stone wall. Its pale yellow light reached only a few steps ahead. Everything beyond was swallowed in a dense, ink-black darkness. And the most terrifying part, I was certain that darkness had shape, had weight, even had thousands of invisible eyes staring at me from within. I heard no breathing. I saw no movement, yet the sensation was so real it made my heart pound painfully in my chest. I slowly looked around. The walls were built from rough, uneven black stone blocks, with no marks or traces of human craftsmanship, as though they had been stacked by a hand not of this world. The floor was made of thick wooden planks, darkened and worn smooth, as if polished by thousands of feet, thousands of hands over centuries. Every step I took echoed hollow and long, like a sound carried from some distant, lifeless world. At the center of the room stood a massive wooden counter that dominated nearly all the space, rising to my chest. Its surface was so smooth it faintly reflected my image. But what it reflected was not entirely me. My face appeared slightly distorted. My eyes were darker, as if something else lurked within that reflection. The surface of the counter was covered with countless small, deep indentations arranged in rows, as if thousands of hands had gripped it too tightly in moments of utter terror and despair. Each mark felt like it held a fragment of pain, a scream long swallowed by silence. And behind the counter sat an old man. He looked as though he had fused with the building itself since the moment it was constructed. His hair was a tangled white, falling over his shoulders, streaked with strands of black that had never turned gray, as if they drew their color from the surrounding darkness. His skin was wrinkled, darkened, and pitted, lined with deep creases like the bark of a tree long dead. Each wrinkle seemed to record an event, a secret no one dared to recall. His chin jutted sharply, his lips thin and nearly colorless, cracked like drought-stricken earth. But what made my heart skip a beat was his eyes. They were completely black, no whites, no pupils. Only two endless voids staring directly at me, as if they already knew everything I would do, everything I would endure, even before I was born. He did not stand. He did not blink. He did not move a single finger. I could not even see his chest rise or fall with breath, as if he had not been sitting there for hours or months, but for centuries, waiting for the exact moment I stepped through that door. I clenched my hands at my sides, trying to suppress the trembling spreading through my body, and took a few slow steps forward. Each step felt 10 times heavier than normal, as if the ground itself was pulling me back. When I reached the counter, I set down the thin cloth bag containing the few belongings I had left. The sound was soft, but it echoed unnaturally long, like a small cry swallowed by absolute silence. My throat was as dry as if it had been scorched by months of relentless sun, yet I forced my voice out, trying to sound as normal as possible. "Sir, my name is Ilias Vans. I saw the job notice in an old newspaper. You're hiring a station caretaker, triple pay, no experience or documents required. I've come to take the job." He did not move a single millimeter. Only those pitch-black eyes seemed to look deeper into me, piercing through skin, through flesh, through every rib, as if reading every thought, every pain, every hidden desire I had never dared admit, even to myself. The despair of being thrown out of the factory, the shame of selling everything I owned, the fear of sleeping in a freezing car, the doubt that my entire life meant nothing. All of it lay bare before him. Nothing could be hidden. After a silence that felt like an entire millennium, long enough for my heart to pound hundreds of times in suffocating tension, he finally spoke. His voice was dry, slow, heavy, as if each word had to be dragged up from deep beneath the earth through layers of stone. "You did not come here by chance, Ilias. No one passes through that door by accident. Everyone who comes here is someone who has lost everything, someone who no longer belongs to the world outside, someone who believes they have nothing left to lose, and that is their greatest mistake." I frowned, unease creeping in, but I forced myself to remain confident. "What do you mean?" "I just saw the notice and came for a job." He slowly shook his head, the motion so slow it took nearly 10 seconds to complete. Before you decide to stay, listen carefully. We do not even have a single piece of paper to sign. Any document, any written record placed here turns to ash after a few nights, leaving no trace, as if it never existed. I frowned deeper. Why, it's just a station job. What could be so secret that it can't be written down? He let out a long, heavy sigh, as if carrying a lifetime of burdens no one could understand. Nothing here is normal, not a single detail. Listen carefully. This place is a fragile crack in the surface of the world, where the barrier between the living and what remains after death has worn thin, eroded by thousands of restless souls. Since the first stone was laid in 1891, more than 40 people have stood exactly where you are standing now. My heart skipped, but I forced a small laugh to mask my unease. 40 people? So where are they now? Quit or moved on? His gaze shifted into something like deep pity, so cold it seemed to freeze my blood. Most of them were like you, young, strong, believing they feared nothing. They laughed at me, mocked my words, called me a mad old man who had lived alone too long. They stepped through that door, certain they would earn a high wage and leave the next morning. He paused, and not one of them, not a single one, ever stepped out to see the sunlight again. I burst out laughing. The sound echoed off the stone walls and came back to me like a mockery of my own voice. You're exaggerating. It's just an old station in the middle of the woods. What's so terrifying about it? I've survived 3 months of starvation, sleeping in a freezing car. Nothing here can be worse than that. I still want the job. He looked at me for a long time, as if searching for even a trace of understanding in my eyes. Then he slowly nodded. If you choose not to heed the warning, then sit down, sit calmly. Prepare your mind, because now I will tell you 6 things, 6 rules that must never be written down. He fell silent again, a pause that felt as long as 1,000 years. The weight of it pressed against my chest like tons of stone. The oil lamp flickered violently, its pale yellow light fading into a dull ash gray, trembling as if it might go out at any moment. The air thickened further. The cold seeped deeper into my bones, raising every hair on my body. Then his voice came again, slow, dry, each word carving itself into the space around us. Listen carefully, Elias. Listen as if your life depends on every word, because it does. There will be no second telling, no way to fix anything if you forget or misunderstand. He leaned forward slightly, those black eyes drilling into my mind as if to burn the rules into it forever. The first rule, his voice dropped, as if afraid something in the darkness might hear. After the last train leaves at exactly 23:15 until exactly 3:15 in the morning, you must not open any window, under any circumstances. He paused. Not if the room becomes so hot your skin cracks open and bleeds. Not if the air grows so thick you can barely breathe, like drowning in bottomless water. Not if you hear your mother calling your name clearly, as if she stands just beyond the glass. Not if you hear your father's voice, your closest friend, the one you love most, calling you home. Not if you hear a child crying desperately, begging for help as if freezing to death outside. Not if you hear knocking, soft, steady like a heartbeat, like something waiting for you to open it just for a second. He slowly shook his head, the wrinkles on his face deepening. You must understand this clearly. After 23:15, the world outside is no longer the pine forest, no longer the ground, no longer the star-filled sky you once knew. His voice dropped to a whisper. Everything you see here or feel out there is what has been trapped here for hundreds of years, restless souls. Forgotten passengers, those who stepped through that door and never left. They wait for only one thing, a single opening, the smallest gap to slip through. He leaned closer. And if you open even the smallest crack, just enough for a finger to pass, the cold from outside will enter immediately. It was not an ordinary cold, but a chill so deep that the blood in my veins felt as if it were freezing drop by drop, my heart seeming to stop on the spot. A foul stench flooded in, the smell of flesh slowly rotting in eternal darkness, the scent of earth from graves sealed for centuries. And then they would begin to call you. They learned the voices of everyone you had ever loved, everyone you had ever lost. They knew every word your mother had spoken to you as a child, every lesson your father taught you, every promise you made to the one you loved. They knew exactly what would break your heart the most. He looked straight into my eyes. The moment you open it, a hand will reach in immediately. That hand would be pale like rotting paper, its nails long and sharp as blades, cold like stone buried deep underground for 200 years. It would touch you, and wherever it touched your skin would turn a pale gray, forever losing its warmth. Then more hands would come, hundreds, thousands, pulling you outside, dragging you into that endless darkness where no one would ever see you again. You would become one of them, waiting for the next person to open the window. I felt goosebumps rise all over my body, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. He continued, "Many before you thought, just a little won't hurt." They opened it and their screams echoed throughout the station, then suddenly fell into eternal silence. There was no one left to tell the story, except me. He went on, his voice growing heavier. "The second rule, if you hear a train whistle roaring so loudly that it shakes the stone walls, the window glass rattling as if about to shatter, yet you see no light coming from the locomotive, under no circumstances are you to step outside, not to answer even a single call, not even to look out for more than a single breath. That is not a train from the world you know. Those are trains that met with accidents hundreds of years ago, passenger trains, freight trains, prison trains. All of them are trapped in this crack. They never reach their destination. They run forever in the darkness with no stops, no end. The train is completely pitch black, as if formed from darkness itself. There are no headlights, no lights in the windows, no smoke from the chimney, no sound of wheels on the tracks. It floats as if in midair, silent except for that horrifying whistle. The whistle is not a signal of arrival, but the wailing of thousands of trapped souls, crying for help, longing to escape. Inside each carriage, hundreds of passengers are packed together like fish in a barrel. They all share the same face, completely pale, skin thin as paper clinging to bone, eyes like endless black pits. Their mouths gape so wide they nearly split their heads in two, no tongues, no teeth, only a bottomless void screaming in silence. And the most terrifying thing is that every one of them bears your face, because they are those who once stood exactly where you are now, those who broke this rule. If you step outside or look for too long, they will see you. They will know you are still alive. And they will begin to reach out, thousands of unnaturally long hands, dripping with a dark red liquid like congealed blood. They will call your name, and if you answer, they will pull you onto the train immediately. From that moment on, you will run with them forever, never seeing sunlight again, never reaching an end. He paused for a moment, as if witnessing the scene in his mind. One person before you stepped outside to look, he thought it was a rescue train coming for him. I heard him scream, and then that scream quickly blended into the whistle, and his voice was never heard separately again. He moved on to the third rule, his voice turning the sternest yet. The third rule, when someone stands at the counter to buy a ticket, no matter how real they seem, so real you can feel their breath, feel the fabric of their clothes brushing against the wood, even smell their perfume or the familiar scent of tobacco, you must first ask one single question. Where do you come from? He emphasized each word. You must not sell a ticket before asking that question. You must not treat them as an ordinary person. You must not say anything else before that question. If they answer with any place you recognize, a town, a village, a city, then perhaps they are just someone who has lost their way. But if they answer, I come from a place where time does not exist, you must immediately hide under the counter. Do not hesitate for even a second. Do not look into their eyes again. Remain absolutely silent until everything becomes completely still. They are the souls that have been trapped here the longest, since before the station was even built. They are those who have been dead for so long that they no longer remember their own names, their families, or where they once lived. They know only one thing, to find a living person to take their place. They can appear in any form, a beautiful young woman, a kind old man, a soldier, a mother holding a baby. All of them look perfectly real. But the moment they say those words, a place where time does not exist, everything changes instantly. Their skin turns ashen gray, shriveled like a corpse centuries old. Their eyes become bottomless black pits. Their mouths stretch wide to their ears, revealing a void of absolute darkness. They emit a roar like thousands of beasts howling at once. If you do not ask the question, or if you ask but fail to hide, they will reach across the counter and seize your throat or your shoulders. Their hands are cold like eternal ice, gripping so tightly that no effort can break free. They will drag you into the place where time does not exist, a realm without day or night, without life or death, only endless darkness and infinite pain. You will become one of them, waiting for the next person to come and ask that same question. He looked at me with eyes full of pain. I have seen 12 people before you meet this fate, Not one escaped. Only the marks of their hands remain on the counter, the deep indentations you saw. The fourth rule, never reach out to take any ticket that bears red stains spreading across it like dried blood. Do not touch it, not even with a fingertip. Do not hold it, no matter if they claim it is a ticket home, a rescue ticket, a ticket for your family, a way out of all hardship. Do not keep it, even if they beg, cry, or promise you everything in the world. It is made of thick paper, pale yellow, aged as if it has existed for centuries. From its center, dark red stains spread outward like the roots of a poisonous tree, red like fresh blood, then deepening like blood that has clotted over centuries. Those stains do not remain still. They move slowly, stretching outward like tiny fingers trying to cling to anything nearby. If even a drop of that red liquid falls onto the wooden floor, the wood immediately darkens, decaying as if it has been eroded for hundreds of years. That ticket is not ordinary paper. It is made from fragments of the souls of those who broke the rules before. Each red mark is a piece of a trapped soul. The moment your fingertip touches its surface, a part of your soul will be sealed into it instantly, irremovable beyond saving. At first, you will feel only a slight chill. Then, night after night, that piece of soul will slowly erode everything that remains of you. You will gradually lose your emotions, your memories, the color of your skin, becoming pale, your eyes turning into dark voids like theirs. Little by little, you will no longer be Elias, but become a permanent passenger on the lightless trains. You will stand at the counter holding that ticket, waiting for the next person to touch it, and the cycle will continue forever. He emphasized, 7 people before you thought, just once won't matter. All of them are now the ticket bearers, standing in the darkness each night. The fifth rule, this is the hardest one because it strikes at your heart more than anything else. If you hear someone call your name, no matter if the voice sounds like your father, your mother, your lover, your closest friend, or even your own voice, you must not answer, not even a single sound. Do not turn your head even slightly. Do not even move your eyes from where you are looking. They do not learn those voices by chance. They take them from your own memories. They know exactly how your father sounded when you were happy, when you were sad, when you were ill. They know your mother's voice when she sang you to sleep, when she cried, when you left home. They know every word, every inflection, every breath of those you have loved and lost. They will stand right behind you, so close you can feel their cold breath brushing against your ear. They will call your name in the gentlest voice. Elias, my son. Elias, I've waited for you so long. Elias, let's go home. And your heart will break. The desire to turn around and see them one more time will overpower all reason, all fear. But a single reply, or even the slightest turn of your head, will open the door of your soul instantly. They will step in. They will slowly take over your body. At first, you will still think you are yourself, but gradually your thoughts and emotions will be replaced by theirs. You will become a vessel for their return, and your own soul will be pushed out, wandering forever in the darkness around this place, calling your own name with no one left to hear. He spoke with deep sorrow. This is why most people before you failed. They could not resist the desire to see their lost loved ones again, and the price was their very existence. Finally, the sixth rule. His voice seemed to carve itself permanently into my mind. The final rule, and the one that protects you as the end approaches. Before stepping outside at exactly 3:15 a.m., you must check carefully, 3 times, every smallest detail. First, slowly turn around and look into every corner of the room, every shadow, to see if anything is clinging behind you. Any small shape, any dark stain, any faint thread attached to your shoulders or your hair. Second, hold your hand out in front of you, move it slowly, and look down at the floor to see whether your shadow moves with you. If the shadow lags even a fraction of a second, or moves in the opposite direction, or if there is an extra shadow intertwining with it, then it is no longer your shadow. Third, stand completely still, breathe as lightly as possible, and sense whether a faint, cold breath touches your neck or behind your ears. Does it feel like someone is standing right behind you, breathing in the same rhythm as you? They are very good at hiding. They will wait the entire night, waiting for the exact moment when you believe you have won, that you have survived until morning, to cling to you in the most silent way. They want to reach the outside world more than anything. Out there are more living people, more souls to claim. If you step out into the light with them clinging to you, they will never leave you. They will live alongside you in the daylight, revealing themselves only when night falls. Each night they will slowly drain your life away. You will hear their whispers in your mind, feel them moving in the darkness around your home, see that your shadow is no longer your own. No doctor can cure it, no prayer can drive them away. And in the end, when you die, they will take over your entire body and continue to live under your name forever. He concluded with the heaviest warning. If there is anything abnormal in any of the three checks, do not step outside. Even if the light has appeared, no matter how desperately you want to escape, remain inside until everything returns to normal, or stay inside forever. That is still better than bringing them into the world of the living. After finishing the 6 rules, he fell completely silent. The air in the room seemed to stop flowing. The oil lamp suddenly flared one last time with a blood-red glow, then returned to its weak yellow light. He looked at me for a long time, as if reading my entire future. That is everything you need to know. Never write it down, never tell it to anyone else. Only you and the darkness may know. If you follow every word precisely, perhaps you will walk out tomorrow morning. If not, you will become the next person standing in my place, or one of the things waiting outside. I sat there, trembling uncontrollably. Every word etched itself into my mind, into my bones, like a vow of life and death to myself. When his final words dissolved into the thick air, the entire room sank into an even heavier silence, as if time itself had completely stopped. I sat rigidly on the old wooden chair, my whole body shaking involuntarily, cold sweat running down my spine, even as the temperature dropped so low that my blood felt frozen in my veins. The 6 rules echoed over and over in my mind like a relentless bell, each repetition tightening my chest further. Do not open the window after 23:00. Do not go out to meet the lightless train. Ask, where do you come from? Do not touch the red ticket. Do not answer your own name. Check your shadow before stepping out. I tried to swallow, but my throat was as dry as land cracked by months of drought. Looking up, I saw the old man still sitting there. His pitch-black eyes, like 2 endless voids, did not blink, staring straight at me as if he already knew everything that would happen this night. Do you understand every detail? His voice echoed slowly, as if dragged up from deep underground. There is no room for forgetfulness, no room for carelessness. One small mistake and everything ends immediately. I gave a weak nod, unable to speak. He pointed toward a small door in the corner of the room. I will stay in that room all night, never knock no matter what you hear. I cannot help anyone who breaks the rules, and I will not be dragged into your mistake. At exactly 3:15 a.m., if you are still alive, I will come out. He rose slowly, his movements heavy like wood creaking in the wind, walked toward the door, then paused briefly before stepping inside. Remember this well, they do not only wait for your mistakes, they try to create them. They know every weakness in your heart and will use everything to deceive you. The door shut behind him with a dull thud, as if sealing me inside a separate world, just me and the darkness. I sat alone in the room. The oil lamp hanging on the wall flickered continuously, its faint yellow light illuminating only a small area around the counter. Everything beyond that was swallowed by thick ink-black darkness, like a bottomless maw waiting to devour anything that came too close. I glanced at my wristwatch, 22:40. More than 20 minutes remained before the first dangerous moment, yet it felt as though I had already been waiting here for centuries. I stood up slowly, moving quietly around the counter as if afraid to shake the entire building. Each step on the wooden floor echoed long and hollow, as if something in the darkness answered back. I stopped in front of the nearest window. Its wooden frame was black, the glass clouded as though covered by centuries of dust. I placed my hand on the wall beside it, feeling the cold seeping from the stone, so cold it burned my skin like frostbite. I remembered the first rule: do not open it under any circumstances. I peered outside through the murky glass and saw only a dense blackness. No trees, no ground, no sky. Only darkness and occasionally faint, drifting lights moving slowly, like eyes staring back at me from the other side. I turned back to stand behind the counter, trying to steady myself. But gradually, strange sounds began to emerge, soft, distant, like whispers. The rustling of leaves despite the absence of wind. Light footsteps circling the building, the faint crying of a child, then a strange, quiet giggle. At times, I heard my name being called, very faint, as if from deep underwater. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my skin, forcing myself not to react. The clock struck exactly 23:00. The air suddenly grew far heavier than before, as if tons of stone pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Each breath felt like swallowing shards of ice. Right after that, at exactly 23:05, everything changed completely. The moment the clock's hand pointed to that time, the oil lamp flickered violently once and then dimmed, leaving only a weak flame as if it were about to go out. And immediately everything began. First came the soft knocking on the nearest window. Knock, 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 steady like a heartbeat, neither fast nor slow. My chest tightened painfully. I knew what to do, yet the urge to turn around, even to open it just a little, was unbelievably strong. The knocking continued. Then a very familiar voice came from outside, the voice of my mother who had died 7 years ago. "Ilias, my son, open the window for me. It's so cold. Do you miss me? You've kept me waiting for too long." Tears welled up in my eyes. My heart shattered into pieces. That voice was identical in every detail. The tone, the pauses, the gentle way she used to speak to me. I felt as if she were truly standing out there, shivering in the cold night, waiting for her son to open the window. I took a step toward it, my hand already lifting as if to touch the wooden frame. Then suddenly I remembered the old man's words. They learn the voices of everyone you have ever loved, waiting only for the smallest opening to slip in. I stopped abruptly, biting my lip until it bled to steady myself. My mother's voice continued, now with real sobbing. "Don't you recognize me? Don't you want to see me one last time? I've been searching for you for hundreds of years." Then the voice changed into my father's, my closest friend, the girl I had once loved deeply. All of them called my name, begged, cried, promised everything I had ever longed for. At the same time, the cold from the window intensified, seeping into the room until the air itself felt frozen. I saw faint shapes pressing against the glass, figures resembling my loved ones, their faces pale, eyes black and hollow, mouths stretched wide as if trying to say more. I turned my back, covered my ears tightly, and stood still until the clock struck 1:00 a.m. The voices gradually faded, leaving only a faint hissing sound, like wind slipping through clenched teeth. I let out a long breath, my entire body soaked in cold sweat. I had passed the first trial, but I knew what came next would be far worse. Before I could recover, a train whistle roared, so loud it shook the entire building. The window glass rattled violently as if about to shatter. It was not a normal sound. It carried endless agony. Thousands of wails merged into one, penetrating straight into my bones. I rushed to the corner of the room, pressing myself against the wall as if trying to merge with the stone. From afar, I heard the train approaching, not the sound of wheels on tracks, but a heavy, silent gliding noise drawing closer with every second. I tried not to look outside, but curiosity and terror pulled my eyes toward the window, and I saw it. The train was completely pitch black, as if forged from darkness itself. There was not a single trace of light, from the engine, from the windows, not even smoke. It floated along the tracks as if weightless, moving slowly and horribly. As it passed in front of the window, I could clearly see inside the carriages. Hundreds of figures packed tightly together, their skin pale like decaying paper, their eyes endless black pits, their mouths stretched open so wide they nearly split their heads in half. And what made my heart stop entirely, every face was mine. They saw me instantly. Thousands of unnaturally long hands stretched out from the train windows, nails sharp as blades, dripping with dark red liquid. They called my name in unison. "Ilias, come with us. Let's go together. It will never end." The sound echoed all at once, seeping into my mind as if trying to pull me out of my body. I pressed my hands harder against my ears, shut my eyes tightly, repeating in my mind, "Don't go out, don't look, don't answer." The train continued past. The whistle faded into the distance, yet it felt as though thousands of eyes were still watching me long after it was gone. When everything fell silent again, I collapsed onto the floor, trembling uncontrollably, knowing that a single step outside would have made me one of them forever. At exactly 1:30, a soft knock on the counter made me jerk so violently my heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I looked up. A beautiful young woman stood before the counter, wearing a thin white dress, her long black hair smooth and flowing, her face gentle like an angel. She looked at me with a kind smile. "Hello, could I buy a ticket home?" My heart felt a little lighter. She looked so real that I could smell the scent of wildflowers on her clothes, see the light in her eyes. But immediately the third rule flashed in my mind. "First, you must ask, where are you from?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "Before selling the ticket, may I ask where you come from?" She smiled faintly, but the smile slowed, then disappeared completely. Her eyes turned pitch black with no whites. She aged rapidly, wrinkling like a corpse hundreds of years old. Her mouth stretched wide to her ears, revealing a bottomless black void as she answered, "I come from a place where time does not exist." Instantly, I dove under the counter, pressing myself tightly into the dark corner, covering my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound. I heard her strange giggle and the heavy footsteps circling the counter, searching for me. "Why are you hiding? We could be together. You will never grow old, never suffer again." An intense cold swept under the counter like a wind from hell. A thin, bony hand with sharp black nails reached down, groping slowly, almost touching my shoulder. I held my breath until my chest ached, not daring to move even a millimeter. Then, after what felt like a lifetime, the footsteps faded away, disappearing into the darkness. I crawled out from under the counter once I was sure everything was silent, sweat soaking my entire body, my heart pounding as if it would explode. Before I could steady my breathing, a figure appeared in front of the counter. An old man in tattered clothes held out a ticket. "Friend, take this ticket. This is a ticket home, a ticket out of all hardship." He spoke in a trembling voice. I looked at the ticket in his hand. The paper was yellowed and worn. From its center, dark red veins spread outward like roots, slowly moving like tiny fingers trying to cling. It was exactly what the fourth rule had warned about. I shook my head firmly. "I won't take it. Put it down." He stepped closer, his face becoming distorted. "It will give you everything you want. Money, family, eternal happiness." He raised the ticket higher, the red veins seeming to leap off the paper toward me. I stepped back, keeping a safe distance, not touching it. "Step forward." Suddenly, the old man vanished, the ticket dropping onto the wooden floor. The moment it touched, the wood immediately darkened and decayed as if it had been corroded for hundreds of years. I stared at it from afar, not daring to approach until it slowly disintegrated into gray dust. I knew that just a light touch of a finger would lock a part of my soul away forever. At exactly 2:40, an absolute silence enveloped everything. Then a very soft, very close voice whispered right behind my ear, "Ilias." My heart stopped completely. It was my mother's voice, clear and close, as if she were standing right behind me, her cold breath brushing my neck. "Ilias, just turn back and look at me once. I miss you so much." The urge to turn around was stronger than all reason. My eyes wanted to turn, my body felt pulled by an invisible force. But I remembered the rule. Do not respond, do not turn your head, do not move your eyes. I stood rigid, staring straight at the wall in front of me, trying not to move even a single hair. The voice kept changing, my father, my best friend, my lover, even my own voice calling myself. "Ilias, don't be afraid, it's me, let's go home." "Ilias, have you forgotten me? I've waited for you so long." "Ilias, why won't you answer? It's you calling yourself." The cold intensified, as if it wanted to freeze my entire body. I felt invisible fingers running along my spine, brushing my cheek, cold as 200-year-old stone. I held that position for nearly 40 minutes, until all the voices gradually faded, leaving only the sound of my own breathing echoing in the room. I had passed the hardest trial. My heart had not been defeated by longing for my loved ones. The clock suddenly struck exactly 3:15 a.m. A faint light began to appear from the entrance, the sign that dawn was coming. I let out a long breath as if I had lived through an entirely different lifetime. But before stepping out, I remembered the final rule: check carefully 3 times. The first time, I slowly turned and scanned every corner of the room, every shadow. Nothing was clinging behind my back, on my shoulders, or in my hair. The second time, I raised my hand in front of me, moving it slowly, looking down at the floor. My shadow moved at the same time, not delayed, not reversed, with nothing extra. The third time, I stood completely still, breathing as lightly as possible. No cold breath touched my neck, no sense of someone standing behind me. I sighed in relief. Everything was normal. But as I stepped closer to the door, I suddenly glanced down once more, and my heart shattered. My shadow had a small extra part behind it, a tiny figure standing still, not moving with me. I froze. It had been clinging to me all night without my knowing. I did not step out. I stood still, focusing all my will, repeating in my mind, "Not mine, go away, there is no place for you here." I stood there for more than 10 minutes until the small shadow gradually faded, completely dissolving like mist under sunlight. Only after checking 3 more times and being certain nothing remained did I open the door and step outside. The faint dawn light shone on my face, the warmest feeling in my life. I stepped out, breathed in the fresh air, feeling as if I had been born again. The black stone station door closed behind me. When I turned back, I saw the old man standing at the entrance, looking at me with a strange expression, as if he had just witnessed the rarest thing in the world. You are the third person in over 100 years to survive that entire night. His voice echoed softly. And now you will carry all 6 of those rules in your heart forever.